Hello human beings, PowerGamer here. If Hollywood has taught me anything, it's why try something new when I can do something I've already done before. So, let's see what video game franchise we're continuing today with the sequel. Mega Man it is!
Mega Man 4, the one that exists. This is one of the lesser talked about Mega Man games, and I can understand why. Not because it's a bad game, but since the series got 6 entries on the same console, obviously not every game is gonna get as much love or attention as the others. Either way, I should probably give it a look. Much like 3, we have a new director for this game, with this one being Yoshinori Takenaka. But unlike Mega Man 3, which had a really rough development cycle, Keiji Inafune claimed there weren't that many issues when working on 4. They wanted to shake up the story a bit by adding some new characters, mostly for the plot, and some that change up the gameplay. This was also the first Mega Man game to feature Hayato Kaji as a director, and he would end up playing a prominent role in most future titles in the series. He decided they should change up the gameplay a bit by giving Mega Man the ability to charge his shots. But the most notable thing about this game is that the bosses weren't designed by members of Capcom. Instead, they held a contest where fans could submit their own designs, which is really cool. And interestingly, the one known as Skullman impressed the team so much they scrapped an entire level that was being worked on just so they could make a new one for him. I didn't know Capcom had a thing for bones. Mega Man 4 was released on December 6th, 1991 in Japan, January of 1992 in North America, and January 21st, 1993 in Europe. And yes, America once again got some decent box art. It's good to know they at least learned something from previous mistakes. No, I will not be letting them live this down, because look at this. Reception was quite positive upon release, about on par with 3 at the time. Oh no. But it was slightly criticized for its lack of originality, and its sales weren't that great. It did better than the first game, but not as good as 2 or 3.
I played this game before, and my thoughts were a bit mixed. There were some things I really liked about it, and some things I really didn't. But maybe my opinion will change after a replay. Back to the Legacy Collection we go!
We actually get an opening cutscene that goes a bit more into Mega Man's backstory. Don't know why they saved this for the 4th game, but whatever. As discussed previously, Rock and Roll were created to be normal robot siblings, but when Wily caused maintenance bots to go on a rampage, Rock was converted into Mega Man. He defeated Wily 3 separate times, but now a new scientist named Dr. Cossack is attacking with 8 robot masters of his own, so Mega Man goes to stop him. Once again, a fairly basic story, but they do change the formula, and by that I mean this is the equivalent of going from 32 sprinkles on a cake to 33 sprinkles on a cake. Yes, it is technically different, but not in a way you would notice. Presentation-wise, the game is about on par with 3. The graphics are still great for the system, and while there is some slowdown, it's thankfully nowhere near as bad as last time. And the sprite flickering is also better, mostly. The soundtrack is still freaking awesome. I feel like that's a given for any Mega Man game. But there is one new thing to the presentation. When you get a new weapon, we get this much more sophisticated intro of Mega Man being upgraded, and I really like this. It makes each upgrade feel a lot more important. We're 4 entries in, so you should know the drill for the gameplay at this point. Running, jumping, shooting, 8 robot masters, stealing their weapons, etc. Mega Man controls about as well as he did in 3, and he still has all his new abilities, that being the slide and the 3 rush adapters, coil, marine, and jet. But much like last time, we have an additional ability added, with this one being the charge shot. If you hold down the shoot button, Mega Man will begin charging his Mega Buster, and when you fire, you can release a much more powerful blast. And there's 2 different levels, depending on how long you hold the button. This is an awesome new ability. It can make stronger enemies easier to deal with, it gives your standard shot more purpose instead of being made irrelevant by the special weapons, and best of all, it makes your initial Robot Master much easier since you can dish out more pain.
The charge shot is a fantastic addition to Mega Man's moveset, but aside from that, the game doesn't really do anything new.
The levels don't do anything too different from what was done previously, but thankfully they eased up on the cheap stuff from 1 and 3. Mostly. I wouldn't say the levels are as tight as Mega Man 2, but they are overall pretty fun. They can be tricky, but you should be able to get through them with some patience. And part of that is you can still find E-tanks to restore your health, and now you don't lose them if you get a game over, so you can save them as long as you want. Only downside is using them might make you lose your hearing. Plus, in some levels, you can find this little robot named Eddie who will give you health, weapon ammo, extra lives, and even entire extra E-tanks. The boss fights, on the other hand, are significantly harder. The 8 robot masters this time around are Ring Man, Dive Man, Skull Man, Bright Man, Dust Man, Drill Man, Toad Man, and Pharaoh Man. And I think the designers thought the special weapons from last time made the fights way too easy because these are easily the hardest robot masters in the series so far. In earlier games, if you found their weakness, you would kill them in just like 2 to 3 hits. Here, they still go down quicker, but nowhere near as fast as before. Not to mention, the fighting fights themselves are a lot more brutal. The Robot Masters in this game are insanely fast and will kill you in just a few hits, not by shooting you, but by touching you. Almost every Robot Master can drain a third of your life by just running into you. Why? That doesn't make any sense. Why does physical contact do 3 times as much damage as a shot from their weapon? Shouldn't that be the other way around? I can deal with them draining your health fast by shooting you, but just touching you? It makes the fights so much harder than they should be, especially since a lot of them basically have the same shooting pattern of these 3 tiny pellets. The real challenge of the fights isn't avoiding their shots, it's avoiding physical contact.
Seriously, imagine if in real life just brushing against someone hurt more than a gun.
Ow! Come on, stupid thing. Whoa! Now we can get into more specific moments. The first stage I played was Toadman. The opening of this level is pretty annoying because of this rain pushing you back and enemies falling from above. Also 2 of these giant snails which act as mini-bosses. Toadman himself is really easy. He just jumps around when you hit him, wiggles a bit, and then unleashes this rain you can't avoid. But he only does this when he's not hurt, so if you just keep shooting, you'll be fine. He's weak to Drillman's weapon. Next is Brightman. This stage is actually pretty creative. If you shoot these light bulb guys, the screen goes dark, but if you shoot these green dudes, it lights up again. So you need to be careful with which enemies you kill and which ones you don't. You also have to ride these grasshoppers and gear platforms. Brightman himself jumps around shooting, but he can freeze you, making you completely immobile until you get hit, so you better hope he doesn't jump into you. He's weak to Toadman's weapon. Pharaohman's level opens with quicksand and has a lot of Egyptian-themed enemies like bugs and mummies, and these moving platforms on spikes get pretty annoying. His fight is basically the same as Brightman, only instead of freezing you, he shoots this giant shockwave, and he's weak to Brightman's weapon. Ringman, the levels in the sky for some reason, has these moving platforms and cannons that are really freaking annoying. Ringman is one of the worst fights in the game. He moves insanely fast and shoots 3 rings back to back. It is nearly impossible to avoid getting hit. He's weak to Pharaohman's weapon. Next I did Skullman, and the only thing of note is that almost everything here looks like a bone. Very amusing. He has the same shooting pattern as Bright and Pharaohman, but he also summons this skull shield which blocks your attacks. I thought he was weak to Ringman's weapon, but turns out I'm an idiot and I read the wiki wrong. He's actually weak to Dustman's weapon. Diveman is the obligatory water level with a bunch of spikes. Why does this game have so many spikes in it? The level also has this. How is that fair in any sort of capacity? Diveman is another awful fight since he darts towards you and occasionally shoots missiles. Yeah, the charging is the real challenge. He's weak to Skullman's weapon. On to Drillman. This level looks like you're underground, and that's about it. The only thing of note is this part where you flip switches to make platforms appear. Other than that, it is totally uninteresting. He fires rockets at you and digs underground just to pop right out. He's weak to Diveman's weapon. And finally, Dustman. This level looks like it's filled with trash and has this part where you have to shoot through a bunch of it before this platform crushes you.
Super Side!
Yeah! Dustman shoots blocks of trash that split into 4 corner shots and sucks you towards him, which somehow makes him invincible. Once again, I was an idiot and thought he was weak to Drillman's weapon. It's actually Ringman's. Overall, a decent selection of stages, but they're nothing amazing.
Much like the levels, the weapons are a step up from 3, but still not quite as good as 2.
The Rain Flush causes Ring to fall, which can hit almost every enemy on screen. The Flash Stopper freezes all enemies, much like the Time Stopper from 2, but this one is actually much better since it uses a chunk of energy to freeze them for just a few seconds instead of going until you run out of energy or leave, which gives you a lot more control of when you use it. The Pharaoh Shot shoots a small orb, but you can charge it up, which causes a larger one to appear above your head and hit enemies above you, or you can launch that one for tons of damage. The Ring Boomerang is fast, but it has really short range. The Skull Barrier surrounds you, much like the Leaf Shield, but you can't shoot it, and it only protects you from 1 hit. The Dive Missiles home in on enemies, but they don't work on everything. The Drill Bomb is super powerful and can be detonated early to cause an explosion, and the Dust Crusher fires a block of trash that splits into 4 separate bursts. Overall, I like the weapons in this game, with the best ones being the Rain Flush, the Flash Stopper, and the Pharaoh Shot. They're not all great, and there aren't any real standouts, but I got a fair use out of most of these. Again, there's the Rush adapters I mentioned earlier, and you start with the Coil, get Marine and Toadman stage, and Jet and Drillman stage. But there's another extra item in the form of the Wire, which is hidden in Diveman stage. It lets you launch this claw to instantly get to the ceiling. It's really cool, and unlike the Magnet Beam from 1, it's not mandatory to beat the game.
There's also the Balloon, which acts like item 1 from Mega Man 2, but I never found it, so I didn't use it.
Once you beat all the Robot Masters, you head straight for Dr. Cossack. Oh, is he supposed to be Russian? I didn't realize. The first stage is covered in snow, so it has ice physics, and ends with you fighting this Mothbot. It shoots small orbs and slams down its spike, which destroys this platform beneath you, so watch out or you'll fall in the pit. It's weak to the drill rocket. The next stage looks very metallic, and it's extremely forgettable. Aside from riding Russian rush jet over this spike pit, literally nothing unique happens. The boss is this giant box that slides in thirds, and you have to slide and jump into it when it comes together. Then shoot this red ball while avoiding energy blasts. It's weak to the Dust Crusher. Third stage is an auto-scroller where you have to shoot cannons and jump on tiny platforms over a bottomless pit. Wonderful! You also have these platforms that go down when you stand on them and up when you jump. The boss is these two robots that walk around the walls and ceiling shooting at you. They're weak to the Pharaoh shot. And now we're on the last one. Jump around all these pipes, and at the end you confront Dr. Cossack. He's in a giant claw machine that grabs you and shoots you, so you gotta use the slide a lot. He also seems to be weak to the Dust Crusher, but I am not certain on that. When you beat him, Proto-Man suddenly shows up with Dr. Cossack's daughter, Kalinka. Turns out Dr. Wily kidnapped her and was forcing Cossack to attack on his behalf, meaning he was the one really responsible for this. Shocking, I know. Wily then shows up and gets fed up with Cossack and Proto-Man. We get more eyebrow bobbing. And he heads off to another fortress. How many of these things does he have? But now we get to the Wily stages.
See? This is how you extend a game's length without pointless padding.
The first one starts with you climbing up, and then you pass through a water tunnel full of spikes. Yeah, these levels really go overboard on the spikes. And hey, disappearing blocks. I knew this game was missing something. The boss is a giant Met, which were those little guys in hard hats, and it sucks. It is literally impossible to go under him without getting hit. So if you're cornered, you're screwed. He doesn't really seem to have a weakness, so I just use the ring boomerang. Second stage, a lot of falling, a lot of climbing, more spikes. The boss is this dude that shoots fireballs forward and bombs at an angle. I swear it's programmed so the bombs happen at the worst possible time. He's also weak to the ring boomerang. Why are the bosses in Wily stages always weak to the same 2 or 3 weapons? Third stage is the obligatory boss rush, and since the robot masters are so freaking hard, you're really gonna need to stock up on E-tanks. After that, we fight Wily in a skull car that shoots fireballs. First phase is weak to the ring boomerang, and the second is weak to the drill bombs, but you can only hurt it with a premature detonation. It's a pain. You think you're done? Nope. We have one final level, and this is the worst boss in the game. It's in the dark, and you have to avoid these giant orbs and shoot him. He's weak to the Pharaoh shot. One small problem, though. You literally have no idea where he is. He's only visible right before he moves, so this whole thing is completely luck-based. I absolutely hate this fight. When you beat him, he begs again, but then quickly escapes via secret passage and the place explodes. Mega Man escapes and rides along this train to reunite with Roll and Rush. And that's about it. Kind of an anticlimactic ending. What the hell happened with Dr. Cossack? Did he face no repercussions just because he was blackmailed? I guess so. Whatever. This world clearly has a terrible law system, so let's just go with that.
Game conquered. Mega Man 4 is a mixed bag. The levels are decent, and the weapons are fun, but the boss fights are insanely frustrating. It's a step up from how annoying 3 was, but I still think 2 is better. Play it if you're curious, but I wouldn't say it's mandatory. That's weird. I think my allergies are starting to act up. It smells kind of funky in here, and for some reason it looks like there's gas pouring in, and I'm gonna go a little dizzy.